All right, welcome to Gov. This week we're going to take a look at fraud. It's very prevalent these days. Different kinds of fraud that happen to you and how to protect your money, how to protect your savings account, how to protect your identity. So we want to make sure that the money you make stays in your pocket and how you go about protecting that. One of the first things, obviously, having some of your money in the bank certainly does help. There's no good place for my icon right now, so I apologize for that. The Truth in Savings Act requires the bank to explain the terms of your account. So if you go in and open an account, or the Beta Credit Union or a bank, they have to explain to you any fees, anything like that, when you open a banking account there for either your debit card or your checking or your savings, whatever it may be. Also, for electronics, that's why they have to tell you if you go to an ATM, it's not like at Wawa, which I'd always suggest, where they have a transaction fee. They have to tell you that there's a transaction fee to let you know that extra monies are coming out. How long they can hold a deposited check for is also something. The bank can't hold on to it for a while. They have a certain number of days that they can hold the check if they're not sure that the company, whatever, is legit. Make sure it's legit. And then, of course, if banks would have failed, like in the Depression time, they have something called FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Basically, the federal government protects the money that you have in the bank up to $250,000. I don't think many of you are extending over that, so I think you should probably be pretty good to go if something should happen. Now, here's where most of the problems that students run into is what's called predatory lending. Sometimes you guys have probably seen it on commercials when you're home sick in the day. Oh, no cash, no credit, no problem. We'll finance you. You've got to be very careful of that, especially at your age. It's easy to fall into that trap. This is called predatory lending. It is legitimate, but it's very unscrupulous and it is very dangerous to play this game. It's when companies offer loans and their collection practices are shady. They have really high interest rates on their loan returns, and basically they get borrowers into a lot of trouble. And then they'll send you to collections. It'll ruin your credit. They'll repossess the car or whatever you've purchased. And it's a really dangerous game to play. So if you see those commercials with, no credit, no problem, we'll take you anyway, please be very careful of that. Avoid those at all costs. Talk to mom and dad, or talk to the bank about getting a loan first before you do anything like that. People with bad credit history, probably because they started with a predatory lender, or they're just in desperate need of a loan, are the ones that usually fall victim to that. They are legitimate, but like I said, they don't have a lot of scruple. They don't have a lot of good moral values there. They're just trying to rip you off, and if they don't rip you off, they're going to still take a lot of money from you. So you have to be very careful when dealing with those. Possible indicators of those predatory institutions. The company will advertise terms that they're never going to give you because you don't have good credit, or again, in your case, most of you have no credit at all at this point. The better your credit, obviously, the better chance they have of getting their money back, so you get better terms in that case. So you guys want to start off by getting good credit. Get a credit card, get one with a very low limit, like $100 or $250. Have mom and dad co-sign that with you. Buy something once a month, pay it off. That helps to build up your credit. The better credit you have, like I said, interest rate on car loans, house loans, school loans, all of that decrease, which is good. That's more money in your pocket. So try to do that now to build up your credit for when you get to your bigger purchases. If you're not told the finance charge, always ask the finance charge. But if for some reason they're not telling you, that means they're avoiding telling you, and that means that the finance charge is going to be ridiculously high. Credit cards are that way. If you pay the minimum balance, that credit card charge is going to jump drastically and going to put you behind in a lot of the payments. If there's no waiting period to get the loan or repaying the loan, that's always a danger. The state allows for a grace period there. If they don't want to give you that grace period or freeze period, that means that they're really trying to corner you into that bad loan. If you have other outstanding loans or if you have bad credit history, those are telltale signs. If people are willing to give you loans and you have a bad credit history already or no credit history, that's always a danger, because you can guarantee that somewhere in there there's a clause where if you don't pay, they can really jack up the interest rates or really jack up the payments on you, and you're in a lot of trouble. All right, one of the more practical, and this is a flat-out crime, and this is one of the growing crimes in America, is identity theft. Identity theft is relatively easy to do if you know what you're doing as far as a thief is concerned. And unfortunately, if you look at number 4, I believe it is, believe it or not, most people think, oh, it's old people, they fall for things. Well, yes, older Americans do fall for some things, and they do get their identity stolen. But actually, the number one victim is you guys. Why? Because most of you don't know anything about your credit. You've never checked your credit because you've never used it. You've never had a reason to, which makes you the number one target. Somebody who's not going to check their credit history or their credit report means that I can steal from you for the next 10 years and you'll never know it. And by the time you go get that first car loan or that first student loan, they're going to come back with your credit history and find out, oh, you've got 2 maxed out credit cards and you defaulted on a car loan, and you're going, I have never purchased any of these. I've never even been to this state or whatever. And in fact, it's me. I have stolen your identity. I've been doing that for the last 10 years, and you've never even known it. What I will do is if you look in that first thing, sufficient information, giving a social security number, an address, a birth date. I can go all kinds of ways. I can make fake IDs in your name. But most importantly, I can be you. And then what I will do is I will use your name, use your social security number, use your date of birth, and actually use my address. The bills will come to my house. I'll pay the minimum payments on it, and it'll rack up your credit card debt. But the credit card company is going to think you're doing all right, you're paying it, and you'll never know that I'm actually using your ID falsely and buying stuff on your name. And so why has this become such a big crime? Well, it's difficult for police to catch identity thieves. As a matter of fact, they put very little resources into it. Most of the time, it's either the bank or the credit card company that actually puts a lot of resources into trying to catch these people, because in the end, they're the ones that end up losing the money if you can prove that somebody has stolen your identity, which becomes difficult for you and can take years of your life to actually straighten out your credit report. So that's why it's really important to stay ahead of this. Number 2, again, it can be very lucrative. It can go on for years before an identity, if somebody even suspects that their identity has been stolen. 3, thieves can keep the IDs for multiple people. So I'll probably be 3, 4, 5 people in a row. So if the police or the credit card company suspects one ID, what I'll do is I'll stop using that. And then I'll have 3 or 4 others, and then I'll pick up a new one along the way, so that I'm using multiple IDs so that it's really hard for me to be caught. And like I said, typically we're going to prey on people that either just give their, you get the letter in the mail, you won the Italian lottery. Wow, I don't remember applying for the Italian lottery. That's because you didn't. That's because I just told you won, and I just need some information, and I can get that check right to you. Wrong. This is also going on online, where people are saying, hey, I'll give you money. Just give me your information so I can deposit that in your account. Wrong. They are lying to you. And if you don't think it happens to you, it happens to teenagers all the time, because they're like, wow, if somebody's saying you're getting free money, guaranteed, it's not free money. There's a lot of strings attached to it, or a lot of dangers with it. So please be very careful with that. Some of the bigger ones also that you guys get caught with is what's called phishing. They'll send out emails, kind of like what I just told you, where you've won something, or they're going to give you something free. Just give us your information and we'll get that money to you. We'll get that product to you. You give them that information and they're good to go. You're not getting the free product. You're getting a free ride to having your identity stolen. Farming's another one. This one's a lot harder to detect. In farming, criminals will actually build websites that actually look exactly like the real website. So you're going on what you think is Target.com or Amazon.com. Now, obviously, those kind of companies pay a lot of attention to who may be stealing that, but you'll Google it, and most of the time it's that very first one. And instead of going to the real website, watch out for those twos in there in those URLs. Target 2. Well, that sounds odd. That's because it is odd. They will steal that because Target owns that domain. You can't steal Target, but Target 2, however, we can steal that. They'll put in so many hits that it actually passes for Target. People typically go to that first one thinking that's the real one, and it'll look like Target, and you'll go to shop, oh, I want that, and then you'll put all your information in, and ta-da, you're not sending it to Target, protecting your ID. Instead, you're sending it to the ID thief himself. He's taking that information and running with it. So be very careful. Watch your URL. Make sure that you're on the proper website. So how do I avoid identity thieves? Again, your information is extremely important. So make sure that you protect all of that. Your credit card numbers, your debit numbers, your PIN numbers. Don't use 1, 2, 3, 4. That's what they use on luggage. Don't use your birth date. Don't use anything that's personal to you. Make something up that an identity thief, they spend hours trying to break PIN numbers. So you've got to be very careful with that. For your check, sign up direct deposit at work. That way that avoids having a paycheck and keeping your routing numbers out in the public. And shred all your documents. Shred your addresses. Shred that stuff. Buy a shredder. As soon as you have that information, zip, and shred it. There is a thing called dumpster diving where identity thieves will actually go in the dumpster and try to retrieve as much information about you as they can. Why? Because it might be dirty in the dumpster, but guess what? Their money comes out clean, and they will take advantage of you doing that. So don't just throw away your information. Make sure you're shredding it so that you can make sure that it stays away from the bad guy. So how else? Keep watching on your bank statements. Make sure you're reading your bank statements every month. Make sure, sometimes banks makes errors, something goofy happens, so that's a personal protection there, as well as making sure that for some reason you're not spending $300 at Walmart. You see an outrageous purchase at Walmart. Walmart, is a lot of times they will go to Walmart because Walmart, a lot of people buy stuff at Walmart. So make sure that you're watching that. Make sure you're watching your credit card if you have a credit card as well to make sure there's not any outrageous purchases. A lot of times those companies will call you to make sure you're not in Florida. Actually, banks now, if you're traveling abroad, will tell you, make sure you tell us that you're traveling abroad. They won't accept charges abroad unless you've actually already told them that you're traveling. Make sure that the website you're going to on the internet is ID, HTTPS. Make sure it's a secured website. Make sure it's a trusted resource. Don't go to, Harry's House of Hardware. You've never heard of it before, but start making big purchases because, again, you're opening yourself up to that. You can check you can visit the couple websites I've put here to make sure that you check for any type of fraudulent places or, those things. They'll keep track of those to make sure you don't have a fraudulent account. Finally, what do you do if you lose your information, your purse is lost or stolen, something like that? The very first thing to do is make sure you file a police report. Make sure that's on information, because if they're checking your credit after the fact and you don't have a police report in there, they're going to question that. So if you have a police report, that's a bonus. You're already ahead of the game. Cancel your credit cards, cancel your debit card right away. The banks will help you, walk you through that process and get you new information, including a PIN number. Go to Equifax. Numbers there, that's your credit report. Let them know that these things have been stolen. They'll keep an eye out for any kind of weird purchases as well. Report any loss of monetary value you have to your bank so that hopefully you can be reimbursed for that. If you have checks, Telecheck is another place for bad checks if your checks have been taken. And then, of course, get a hold of the bank and get a new ATM card, new number, new password. That way you really won't miss a beat. You won't miss any bills, especially if you pay online. Then you don't get behind on your bills as well. So fraud can be very dangerous. Identity theft can be very dangerous. You have to be very, very careful with how you're doing things electronically. And hopefully this will never happen. But again, make sure that every year you get one free credit check by the federal government. Make sure you go to one of those credit check sites and check it. It doesn't hurt, and just make sure that your credit's on the up and up. Even if you don't have any credit, it's good to check. All right. And I'll see you guys next week when we talk about credit cards.